Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Thank you, Prabhuji. आज मदन अद्भुत प्रभु बिजी हैं, उनका ऑफिस का कॉल है एक, so I am taking the service on his behalf. Please excuse me if I make any mistakes. हम मंगलाचरण से शुरू करेंगे. वंदे हम श्रीगुरु श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादां सहगण ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा. हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. So we'll start with our prayer for today. कोई सिंग करना चाहेगा? Anybody? If not, I will try. अक्रूरम् अधस्य यदा मुकुन्दास गोविन्द अक्रूरमदस्य यदा मुकुन्दास चपोत सावर्तं मधुरं प्रविष्टा तदा सा पुरैर्जयति अभ्याची गोविन्द दामोदर माधवेति कंसस्य द्युत्येन यद्येव नित्यं वृन्दावनाद्याद् वसुदेव शृणु रुरुधा गोपी भवयस्य मध्ये गोविन्द दामोदर माधवेति सरोवरे कालयानागबन्धं शिशुं यशोदातनयं नियष्याम चक्रूरलोट्यन्यः पाति गोपबाला गोविन्द दामोदर माधवेति अक्रूरयाने यदुवंशनाथं संगाच्छन्नं मधुरं रिकष्या उच्चैर्वियुगत् किल गोपबाला गोविन्द दामोदर माधवेति चक्रद्गोपी नलिनी वनन्ते कृष्णेन हीना कुसुमे शयाना प्रफुल्लनीलोत्पललोचनाभ्यं गोविन्द दामोदर माधवेति मातापितराभ्यं परिवारयानां गेहं परिविष्टविलालपा गोपी अगत्य मां पालय विश्वनाथ गोविन्द दामोदर माधवेति वृन्दावनस्थं हरिमाशु बुद्ध्वा गोपी गता कापि वयं वनं निशम्यं तत्रापि अद्रवती भयाद् अवोचद् गोविन्द दामोदर माधवेति सुखं शयाना निलये निजापि नामानि विष्णो प्रवदन्ति मृत्या ते निश्चितं तन्मयतं व्रजन्ति गोविन्द दामोदर माधवेति सा निर्जक्षं वयालोक्य राधां रुरोध गोविन्दवियोगखिन्नं सखी प्रफुल्लोत्पललोचनाभ्यं गोविन्द दामोदर माधवेति जिह्वे रसाग्ये मधुरा प्रिया त्वं सत्यं हितं त्वां प्रममं वदामि आवर्ण येथा मधुराक्षराणि गोविन्द दामोदर माधवेति गोविन्द दामोदर माधवेति गोविन्द दामोदर माधवेति हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Would anybody like to read translation from 31 to 40?
I can read, Mataji.
Sure, Aarti Mataji, go ahead, please. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. After Lord Mukunda had met with Akura and entered Mathura to attend the ceremony of breaking the bow of Kamsa, all the citizens then shouted, Jai Govinda, Jai Damodara, Jai Madhava. When both sons of Vasudev had actually been taken out of Vrindavan by the messenger of Kamsa, Yashoda sobbed within the house, crying, Govinda, Damodara, Madhava. Hearing how the son of Yashoda, who was but a child, was wrapped within the coils of the Kaliya serpent at the pond, the cowherd boys cried Govinda, Damodara, Madhava, and scurried down the path. Seeing the lord of the Yadus proceeding towards Mathura upon Akrura's chariot, the cowherd boys, upon realization of their impending separation, said, O Govinda, Damodara, Madhava, where are you going? Are you actually leaving us now? At the edge of a lotus forest, a gopi lay down upon the bed of the flowers, bereft of Krishna. Tears flowed from her lotus eyes as she wept. Govinda, Damodara, Madhava. Being severely restricted by her mother and father, a lamenting Gopi entered her house, thinking, Now that I have arrived home, save me, O Lord of the universe. O Govinda, Damodara, Madhava. Thinking that Krishna was in the forest, a gopi fled into the forest in the middle of the night. But seeing that Krishna wasn't actually there, she became very fearful and cried, Govinda, Damodara, Madhava. Even the ordinary mortals comfortably seated at home who chant the name of Vishnu, Govinda, Damodara, and Madhava suddenly attain at least the liberation of having a form similar to that of the Lord. Seeing Srimati Radharani crying from the pangs of separation from Govinda, the blooming lotus eyes of Radharani's girlfriend also filled with tears, and she took right, Govinda, Damodara, Madhava. O my tongue, you are fond of sweet things and are of discriminating taste. I tell you the highest truth, which is also the most beneficial. Please just recite these sweet syllables Govinda, Damodara, and Madhava. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you, Aarti Mataji. That was beautiful recitation. We will now read our Prabhupada Lilamrit. Anybody would like to read today?
I can read, Mataji.
Thank you. Thank you, Vinati. Go ahead, please.
We are on chapter 22.
Yes.
At the baggage claim, Srila Prabhupada waited for a moment, his eyes taking in everyone around him. Lifting his open palms, he beckons everyone to chant louder. And the group bursts into renewed chanting, with Prabhupada standing in their midst, softly clapping his hands and singing Hare Krishna. Gracefully, he then raised his arms above his head and began to dance, stepping and swaying from side to side. To the mixed chagrin, amusement, and irresistible joy of the airport workers and passengers, the reception party stayed with Prabhupada until he got his luggage. Then they escorted him outside into the sunlight and into a waiting car, a black 1949 Cadillac Fleetwood. Prabhupada got into the back seat with Mukunda and Allen Ginsberg. Until the moment the car pulled away from the curb, Srila Prabhupada, still smiling, continued handing flowers to all those who had come to welcome him as he brought Krishna consciousness west. The Cadillac belonged to Harvey Cohen, who almost a year before had allowed Prabhupada to stay at his Bowery loft. Harvey was driving, but because of his chauffeur's hat, picked up at a Salvation Army store, and his black suit and his beard, Prabhupada did not recognize him. Where is Harvey? Prabhupada asked. He's driving, Mukunda said. Oh, is that you? I did not recognize you. Harvey smiled. Welcome to San Francisco, Swamiji. Srila Prabhupada was happy to be in another big Western city on behalf of his spiritual master, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati and Lord Chaitanya. The further west one goes, Lord Chaitanya had said, the more materialistic the people. Yet Lord Chaitanya had also said that Krishna consciousness should spread all over the world. Prabhupada's god brothers had often wondered about Lord Chaitanya's statement that one day the name of Krishna would be sung in every town and village. Perhaps that verse should be taken symbolically, they said. Otherwise, what could it mean, Krishna in every town? But Srila Prabhupada had deep faith in that statement by Lord Chaitanya and in the instruction of his spiritual master. Here he was in the far western city of San Francisco, and already people were chanting. They had enthusiastically received him with flowers and kirtana, and all over the world there were other cities much like this one. The temple Mukunda and his friends had obtained was on Frederick Street in the Haight-Ashbury district. Like the temple at the 26th 2nd Avenue in New York, it was a small storefront with a display window facing the street. A sign over the window read, Sri Sri Radha Krishna Temple. Mukunda and his friends had also rented a 3-room apartment for Swamiji on the third floor of the adjoining building. It was a small, bare, run-down apartment facing the street. Followed by several carloads of devotees and curious seekers, Srila Prabhupada arrived at 518 Frederick Street and entered the storefront, which was decorated only by a few madras cloths on the wall. Taking his seat on a cushion, he led a kirtana and then spoke, inviting everyone to take up Krishna consciousness. After his lecture, he left the storefront and walked next door and up the 2 flights of stairs to his apartment. As he entered his apartment, number 32, he was followed not only by his devotees and admirers, but also by reporters from San Francisco's main newspapers, the Chronicle and the Examiner. While some devotees cooked his lunch and Ranjor unpacked his suitcase, Swamiji talked with the reporters who sat on the floor, taking notes on their pads. Reporter, downstairs you said you were inviting everyone to Krishna consciousness. Does that include the Haight-Ashbury Bohemians and Beatniks? Prabhupada, yes. Everyone, including you or anybody else, be he or she what is called an acid head or a hippie or something else. But once he's accepted for training, he becomes something else from what he had been before. Reporter, what does one have to do to become a member of your movement? Prabhupada, there are 4 prerequisites. I do not allow my students to keep girlfriends. I prohibit all kinds of intoxicants, including coffee, tea, and cigarettes. I prohibit meat eating, and I prohibit my students from taking part in gambling. Reporter, those, do these shall not commandments extend the use of LSD, marijuana, and other narcotics? Prabhupada, I consider LSD to be an intoxicant. I do not allow any one of my students to use that or any intoxicant. I train my students to rise early in the morning, to take a bath early in the day, and to attend prayer meetings 3 times a day. Our sect is one of austerity. It is the science of God. Although Prabhupada had found that reporters generally did not report his philosophy, he took the opportunity to preach Krishna consciousness. Even if the reporters did not want to delve into the philosophy and his followers did, the big mistake of modern civilization, Srila Prabhupada continued, is to encroach upon others' property as though it were one's own. This creates an unnatural disturbance. God is the ultimate proprietor of everything in the universe. When people know that God is the ultimate proprietor, the best friend of all living entities, and the object of all offerings and sacrifices, then there will be peace. The reporters asked him about his background, and he told briefly about his coming from India and beginning in New York. After the reporters left, Prabhupada continued speaking to the young people in his room. Mukunda, who had allowed his hair and beard to grow but who wore around his neck the strand of a large red bead Swamiji had given him at initiation, introduced some of his friends and explained that they were all living together and that they wanted to help Swamiji present Krishna consciousness to the young people of San Francisco. Mukunda's wife Janaki asked Swamiji about his plane ride. He said it had been pleasant except for some pressure in his ears. The houses looked like matchboxes, he said, and with his thumb and forefinger indicating the size of a matchbox. He leaned back against the wall and took off the garlands he had received that day, until only a beaded necklace, a common, inexpensive item with a small bell on it, remained hanging around his neck. Prabhupada held it, inspected the workmanship, and toyed with it. "This is special," he said, looking up, "because it was made with devotion." He continued to pay attention to the necklace as if receiving it had been one of the most important events of the day. When his lunch arrived, he distributed some to everyone, and then Ranchor efficiently, though tactlessly, asked everyone to leave and give the Swami a little time to eat and rest. Outside the apartment and in the storefront below, the talk of Swamiji. No one had been disappointed. Everything Mukunda had been telling them about him was true. They particularly enjoyed how he had talked about seeing everything from Krishna's viewpoint. That night on television, Swamiji's arrival was covered on the 11 o'clock news, and the next day it appeared in the newspapers. The Examiner's story was on page 2. Swami invites the hippies, along with the photo of the temple filled with followers, and some shots of Swamiji, who looked very grave. Prabhupada had Mukunda read the article aloud. The lanky master of the faith, Mukunda read, attired in a flowing ankle-long robe and sitting cross-legged on a big mattress. Swamiji interrupted. "What is this word lanky?" Mukunda explained that it meant tall and slender. "I don't know why they said that," he added. "Maybe it's because you sit so straight and tall, so they think you are very tall." The article went on to describe many of the airport greeters as being one of the long-haired, bearded, and sandaled set. San Francisco's largest paper, the Chronicle, also ran an article. "Swami in Hippie Land. Holy Man opens San Francisco Temple." The article began, "A holy man from India, described by his friends and beat poet Allen Ginsberg as one of the most conservative leaders of his faith, launched a kind of evangelistic effort yesterday in the heart of San Francisco's hippie haven." Srila Prabhupada objected to being called conservative. He was indignant. "Conservative? How is that?" "In respect to sex and drugs," Mukunda suggested. "Of course, we are conservative in that sense," Prabhupada said. "That simply means we are following Shastra. We cannot depart from Bhagavad Gita, but conservative we are not. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was so strict that he would not even look on a woman. But we are accepting everyone into this movement, regardless of sex, caste, position, or whatever. Everyone is invited to come to chant Hare Krishna. This is the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's munificence, his liberality. No, we are not conservative." Srila Prabhupada rose from bed and turned on the light. It was 1 a.m. Although the alarm had not sounded and no one had come to wake him, he had risen on his own. The apartment was cold and quiet. Wrapping his chadra around his shoulder, he sat quietly at his makeshift desk, a trunk filled with manuscripts, and in deep concentration chanted the Hare Krishna mantra on his beads. After an hour of chanting, Srila Prabhupada turned to his writing. Although 2 years had passed since he had published a book, the third and final volume of the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, he had daily been working, sometimes on his translation and commentary of the second canto, but mostly on Bhagavad Gita. In the 1940s in India, he had written an entire Bhagavad Gita translation and commentary, but his only copy had been mysteriously disappeared. Then in 1965, after a few months in America, he had begun again, starting with the introduction, which he had composed in his room on 72nd Street in New York. Now thousands of manuscripts pages filled his trunk, completing his Bhagavad Gita. If his New York disciple Hayagriva, formerly an English professor, could edit it, and if some of the other disciples could get it published, that would be an important achievement. But publishing books in America seemed difficult, more difficult than in India. Even though in India he had been alone, he had managed to publish 3 volumes in 3 years. Here in America, he had many followers, but many followers meant increased responsibilities, and none of his followers are as yet seem seriously inclined to take up typing, editing, and dealing with American businessmen. Yet, despite the dim prospects for publishing his Bhagavad Gita, Srila Prabhupada had begun translating another book, Chaitanya Charitamrita, the principal Vaishnava scripture on the life and teachings of Lord Chaitanya. Putting on his reading glasses, Prabhupada opened his books and turned on the dictating machine. He studied the Bengali and Sanskrit text, then picked up the microphone, clicked the switch to record, flashing on a small red light, and began speaking. While the Lord was going chanting and dancing, he spoke no more than a phrase at a time, flicking the switch, pausing, and then dictating again. Thousands of people were following him, and some of them were laughing, some were dancing, and some singing. Some of them were falling on the ground, offering obeisances to the Lord. Speaking and pausing, clicking the switch on and off, he would sit straight, sometimes gently rocking and nodding his head as he urged forward his words. Or he would bend low over his books, carefully studying them through his reading glasses. An hour passed, and Prabhupada worked on. The building was dark except for Prabhupada's lamp, and quiet except for the sound of his voice and the click of and hum of the dictating machine. He wore a faded peach turtleneck jersey beneath his grey wool chadara, and since he had just risen from bed, his saffron dhoti was wrinkled. Without having washed his face or gone to the bathroom, he sat, absorbed in his work, at least for these few rare hours. The street and Radhakrishna temple were quiet. The situation with the night dark, the surroundings quiet, and him at his transcendental literary work was not much different from his early morning hours in his room at the Radha Damodara temple in Vrindavan, India. There, of course, he had no dictating machine, but he had worked during the same hours and from the same text, Chaitanya Charitamrita. Once he had begun a verse by verse translation with commentary, and another time he had written essays on the text. Now, having just arrived in this corner of the world, so remote from the scenes of Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, he was beginning the first chapter of New English version of Chaitanya Charitamrita. He called it the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you, Minidhi. That was amazing reading. Would you like to share some of your reflections from today's reading, Minidhi?
Yes, the whole reading, the way it's written, kind of transported me to that particular place. I'm feeling I'm standing in front of the storefront or seeing Srila Prabhupada's little tiny apartment in the next building, how he's sitting in the makeshift trunk table, and how everybody's responding, and, how a man from India in 70s coming alone created this stir that in San Francisco, the day he arrives, there's a major newspapers, Chronicle, and Examiner covering his arrival. That is such a huge accomplishment. And he did
Yes.
it all by himself. He did that all by himself. So it's just an honor to read this, Mataji. I just feel so blessed that I get to read all these today. Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you, Minidhi. Yes, I had the same feeling. In fact, yesterday at Manjesh Prabhu and Priya Mataji's house, Vrindavan Prabhu was telling about the same, the same part when Mukunda and Janki Mataji called Prabhupada to San Francisco. And I was reflecting how Prabhu always connect things that, whatever we are reading in today, in every day's morning, it is somehow reflecting in our spiritual lives. When it was Prabhupada's Kirtan, we were in Sadhu Sangha. When it is, Prabhupada going to San Francisco, it's just Prabhu yesterday mentioned the same thing. So it was a beautiful connection. I felt Prabhupada is reciprocating with our morning reading group. That was very beautiful. Yes, it is very, astonishing that even before Prabhupada came to San Francisco, there were already so many followers. Mukunda Prabhu has already, he was just 3 months into Krishna consciousness, and he had already like 50 devotees standing there welcoming Prabhupada with the flowers, and it was so beautiful. Prabhupada must have felt, like so happy. I was so happy for Prabhupada that he was welcomed so warmly, and he had big smile on his face. We have always seen those videos, Prabhupada, being welcomed on airports. I could now see it in the words and, see it in our minds and hearts when we were reading this today. Anybody else would like to share anything?
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah. Yes, similar to what you and Mataji said. I was just it just reminded me that I was yesterday talking to one of my cousins, and we were talking regarding the same thing, that it's only if it's Vaishnava's mercy or Krishna's mercy, then only you can hear such things. Without them, you cannot even without that you cannot even practice bhakti. Even if you make somebody try to do it, they cannot, until they have Krishna's mercy. So she was talking about like her pet. She had a dog, and he passed away, and she was so attached to that dog, and then how that got her into bhakti, and now she's taking it more seriously, and realizing few things in her life. So we were just discussing that even to read all this, even to hear all this, there should be Krishna's mercy.
Absolutely, Mataji. Yes, you are right. Yesterday, also at the home program, we were discussing everything like that. There are thousands of people who hear the message, but only one get attracted. And out of the thousands who get attracted, one may take up bhakti, and out of thousands who take up bhakti, one may go back to Godhead. So
Yeah,
yes.
true.
So just the mention of dog reminds me that I remember Malti Mataji once. I only had opportunity once to host Malti Mataji a couple years ago, and we were talking about Mukunda and Janki and how Malti Mataji came into Krishna consciousness, and she said she was so happy to share that when Prabhupada arrived at San Francisco airport, in the picture, my dog Ralphie is also in it. He was there too.
Yes.
So
Some of the
dog Ralph.
fortunate souls, even they are
Okay,
not in the
yeah.
human life, they are there.
Yeah, just the mention of dog reminded me of Ralph. Like, okay, how blessed Ralph was to be around. And he's in the picture too. So it's recorded that Ralph
Very
was there.
cool.
And Malti Mataji was so excited sharing that. So just
Mhm.
thought of that. Yes.
Wow.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Mataji,
Thank you.
for wonderfully leading this class this morning. Thank you.
My humble attempt, Nidhi, I am not qualified, but since Prabhu was, occupied with his suddenly office call, I was like, okay, just for Srila Prabhupada. And also, I wanted to share with everyone. It was yesterday or day before yesterday that 26 Second Avenue, where Prabhupada started in New York. They got Prabhupada DT installed there, and a beautiful program got conducted at Bhakti Center at New York.
Haribol.
Yes, it
Wow,
was
Haribol.
all the senior Vaishnavas, all Guru work like Chanda Swami Maharaj, His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj. Everybody was there. A lot of our devotees whom we are reading, Hayagriva Prabhu and other Prabhus. Were there, and it was a 3-hour recording. I would share the recording in our ISKCON
Book.
reading group.
Thank you.
Yes, it was. I just quickly went through, the glimpse of it because it was a big recording. I couldn't finish the whole thing, but it was so beautiful to see that. And everybody, like so many of the devotees, were talking about the same things we are reading. Their reflections. Hayagriva Prabhu was there, and he was telling about those early days. It was beautiful, beautiful to hear from all those, the real people whom we are reading. So many of them were there. And also a beautiful thing they mentioned, and they also showed in the video, was Prabhupada's shoes, what he wore and came to America. And it was, they were mentioning that it was rubber shoes, and it was cold winter when Prabhupada used to walk with those rubber shoes. They have preserved it. They have quoted something and they have preserved it. And it is, if you see the video, it is there. You can take the darshan. So a very amazing thing he mentioned in the video, and I recall that, was Prabhupada used to put a cardboard inside those shoes in the winter morning when he used to walk, because it was rubber shoes, and they get cold. And so just to insulate and protect from that cold, he used to put cardboards inside those shoes, inside those shoes. It was like we cannot think of Prabhupada's austerity, what he has done for all of us. So it was amazing and mind blowing what he has done. Like so many small things he might have done which we don't know, but one of these things was shared. So I just wanted to share with our group.
Beautiful. Thank you, Mataji.
Yes. Okay, with Vaishnav Pranam prayers, we will end our reading here today. Thank you so much for participation. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Ananta koti Vaishnav vrinda ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Prabhupada Lilamrit ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank
Hare
you, Mataji.
Krishna.
Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you,
Thank
Meenakshi
you,
Mohini.
Mataji. Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.